Continuing down the path through the failed Dark Universe, building up to the release of The Invisible Man, we now go to The Mummy, which was the Dark Universe reboot that pretty much stumbled and failed right out the gate. But was it really that bad? As we build towards the release of The Invisible Man, let's talk about it.
It's not me. It's you.
Somewhere in there, I know you're a good man.
The world needs a cure. You can be that cure.
Welcome to Durbania. I'm Durbin, and this is my theological takeaway from The Mummy, the power of life and death. The Mummy to me was really kind of interesting because I thought it was pure dumb fun. Of course, it's not like a great movie. It's definitely not a strong movie, and I can see why the numbers for it were pretty weak and why it's not a good start to the Dark Universe. But if you just kind of go in knowing that, and just kind of expect some dumb fun, I think there's plenty of dumb fun to be had with this movie. But even beyond the dumb fun, as we dive into the Dark Universe, it's interesting because both Dracula Untold and The Mummy have a basic premise. It requires you to die to yourself to be reborn a monster, which is a perversion of what it means to come into a relationship with Jesus, which is to die to yourself to be born again as a brand new creation. So it's kind of interesting, this concept, as it weaves its way through these two monster movies in the Dark Universe. And The Mummy itself seems to be concerned with two great big points. Point number one, we get from Dr. Jekyll. He's all about evil, and can evil be quantified?
Let me ask you a question real quick. Does evil exist? And if so, can one detect and measure it? Rhetorical question, Morty. The answer's yes, you just have to be a genius.
Can it be cured? Is it like a disease? Is it treatable? And that's what he wants to do. He wants to cure evil, because, I mean, after all, this is Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, so he's got that evil living in him that he's battling with, and what he wants to find is the cure to evil. And they come across Amenet, the most ancient of the evils thus far that they have found. But then with Amenet, we get to our next great big thing, the power of life and death, the mystery beyond the veil of death. What was interesting to me was this one scene where you have Jenny talking to Amenet.
Nahud Narahij. What you truly wish to know is what lies beyond the veil of death.
And Jenny does not disagree. I mean, isn't it kind of a mystery that gives us a little bit of fear? What happens when we die? Is there an afterlife? What is that afterlife? So this movie deals with these two great big things, the power of life and death and dealing with evil. One of the things I love that Dr. Jekyll says is that evil, darkness, is always on the outside looking for a way to get in. It's looking for a way to get a foothold in. And that's what we see in this movie. Evil trying to take advantage of the pride of human beings to take the power of life and death into their own hands, and through that pride and through their yielding to it, gets its foothold into the world. So Amenet had this dagger. The dagger had a jewel in it. Using the dagger, she will fulfill her pact that she made with Set, basically the devil. She made a deal with the devil, Set, the god of death. And so she would kill some other dude, and that dude would then become the vessel for Set, and that dude would have the power of life and death, and supposedly together, these two would rule. But this whole thing got interrupted. And this all started because of Amenet's pride. She was going to be the next pharaoh. But Pharaoh had a baby boy. And now her inheritance was taken away, and she couldn't stand the idea of not having that power, so she did what she could to take power, including making a deal with the devil. I mean, seriously, come on. Did you learn nothing from my analysis of Dracula Untold? You turn to the darkness, it's not going to give you what you want. It's going to take you and mold you into its own image and likeness. This is what happens with Amenet, and she gets buried alive, mummified alive, and the pact doesn't get complete. So when they put the jewel and the dagger together, it will bring back Set, the god of death. So as we're dealing with this question of can evil be cured, and what is the mystery beyond the veil of death, you have Tom Cruise playing Nick. And this is part of the dumb fun of this movie. It's more Tom Cruise running. I mean, that's what he's famous for, just all his runs and all his movies. He does quite a bit of running in this movie. He does. Thankfully, he was cursed so that, he didn't get tired from all of that running. Dumb joke, I know. But what's interesting to me about Nick and his character is his arc. He starts off as kind of a selfish thief. He's going through and finding antiquities. He's selling them on the black market and making money. And he's that selfish that here he sleeps with Jenny and steals her journal after he sleeps with her, which has a map, and that's where they find Aminet and all of that stuff. It opens with how selfish he is, but as the movie unfolds and he falls in love with Jenny, his arc is how much he changes.
You gave me the only parachute without hesitation.
I thought there was another one.
And it's not just because of the change of the curse. Yeah, he gets cursed, and yeah, he gets these extraordinary powers because he's the chosen vessel for Set by Aminet, but that's not entirely the thing that changes him. It's the fact that he falls in love with Jenny. And that's what love does. You put somebody else above yourself. See, in this movie, you really see what you feed is what gets the stronghold. You feed that selfishness, it gets stronger and takes hold. You feed that selflessness, then that's what's going to get stronger, and that's what's going to take hold. And so in this movie, you see that fight, that battle of good and evil that is going on inside of Nick. And so finally, at the end, where Jenny is dead, he can't abide the fact that she's dead. All the mistakes he's made in his life, she can't be one of them. That's love. Jesus said, greater love has no one than this, but to lay his life down for his friends. So what does he do? He takes Aminet's dagger and he stabs himself. So he sacrifices himself and becomes the curse to bring Jenny back from death and give her new life. And he defeats the enemy in the process. He takes the keys of life and death and brings Jenny back to life. As I was watching this movie, I was thinking of Adam and Eve. Satan is that god of death, the god of this age, and he was on the outside looking in. And so he tempted Adam and Eve, and they fell. And that was his end. He got into our world, and the curse set in. And one of the worst parts of that curse was death. And I'm not just talking the physical death of the body, but I'm talking the death of the human spirit. That spirit that lives inside of you and me. It died that day when Adam and Eve let Satan in. And I kind of like to think of their dead spirit as kind of those mummy zombies, those dead zombies coming out of their graves there at the end, chasing Tom Cruise through the water and stuff. I kind of think of it like that. Our spirits died on the inside. So for that to come back to life, we have to go to Jesus, because in ourselves, there was no hope. But Jesus came, who was all good, and he defeated evil. He is the cure to evil. But when he died for us, he became the curse. And in becoming the curse, broke its power over us. So now when we come to him, we get born again. In other words, that spirit that lives on the inside of us is regenerated. We die to ourselves. We die to that selfish nature, to that sinful nature. And that spirit that was dead inside gets revived and becomes a new creation. Not a monster. It becomes a new creation full of life and light and not death and darkness. And just like how we saw Nick get a new monster nature in this movie, we see that he still had a choice. He could either yield to that monster nature or he can yield to that good in him. When we come to Christ, he brings our spirit back to life. We have a brand new nature imparted to us on the inside, but we still live in a fallen world and we still got this body, so there is still a fallen nature to contend with. And you know what? None of us is going to walk this path perfectly. Period. But as we draw closer to God, he'll draw closer to us. As if we feed that sinful nature, it gets stronger. If we feed that spiritual nature, that new life that Jesus gives us, then that is what gets stronger. Thankfully, even when we make mistakes, because we will, that's a guarantee, he said he'll never leave us or forsake us. And when we come before him, he's our advocate, our friend, and he forgives us. So when I watch The Mummy, that is my theological takeaway. Jesus now holds the keys of life and death, and he destroyed him who had the power of death so that we don't have to be haunted by the fear of death as we go through life. It's not a mystery anymore. He goes to prepare a place for us so that where he is, we can be also. He said in his Father's house are many rooms, and he's gone to prepare a place for us, and he always tells us the truth. In him, we have that eternal life. What did you think when you watched The Mummy? Let's talk about that in the comments. Are you looking forward to The Invisible Man this week? Let's talk. And while you're there, hit that subscribe button so you're notified when I drop my review for The Invisible Man, or for my next theological takeaway video, or movie review, ranking video, or anything else I do here. I'm Durbin. Thanks for checking out Durbania.